Hello, my name is Kirioth, and today I'm going to attempt to back up a statement that I make constantly every other video, which is that Lorgar was the best Primarch. Don't fucking at me, I will fight you. Okay, let's talk about Lorgar, because he is my favourite Primarch. I've said several times he is my favourite Primarch. I've said he's the best Primarch. And I'm aware that in many ways that could be seen as objectively untrue. A lot of the things that I like about Lorgar are nothing to do with the fact that he's a Primarch, which I know sounds very weird, it sounds very daft. To me, some of the most disliked characters from the Horus Heresy, some of the most disliked Primarchs of the whole lot of them, are the ones that are the most interesting, that I have, I guess, the most kind of the most resonance with. For instance, Guilliman is widely regarded as just being the fucking worst. You know, completely inflexible, completely obsessed with rules, is just unimaginative and frustrating and a boring character. Especially through things like Unremembered Empire, for instance. I think Guilliman is one of the most interesting Primarchs because he is one of them that doesn't seem to quite belong. He knows what he's capable of, he knows that he is vastly intelligent, he knows that he is excellent in terms of his combat effectiveness, and yet he kind of strives for an ideal which is not possible, even for him. He kind of strives to be always better than he is, but in ways that are not the same as his brothers. He seems so convinced of trying to make it so that, you know, his warriors don't need to be warriors anymore. That, I don't know, that kind of speaks to me on a much more interesting level than say like Lehman Russ, or the kind of the arrogance and big-headedness of Lionel Johnson. Guilliman has a goal of making it so that his own warriors, his own sons, are effectively obsolete as warriors. That they're not needed, that they take over as statesmen, as politicians, as diplomats, and that is so much more of a noble goal than, I don't know, for instance, murdering the population of planets because they did a bit of crime once. He just seems a little bit more nuanced in a way, a little bit more human, I guess. And I think that is why I like Lorgar so much, because Lorgar to me is one of the most human Primarchs. He's not comfortable in his own skin. He's not actually interested or prepared for the office that he's been given. He is very much a creature of faith, and he's a creature of faith in an empire where you're not supposed to have faith. He kind of idolises something which he's been told doesn't exist, and because no one else really thinks like him, he doesn't feel like he has that much of a place. I mean, when you consider the relationships that he actually has, his closest brother is Magnus, who has his own set of issues in terms of how he slots in with the rest of his brothers. Lorgar has always struck me as almost like a human in a Primarch's body. You know, the Primarchs as a whole are so far elevated above normal humanity. I mean, they're so far elevated above Space Marines, and Space Marines are so far above humans, it's ridiculous. They are like living supercomputers. They are able to withstand blows that would destroy tanks. They're demigods, effectively. But the thing that I find most interesting about Lorgar is that he seems to be the only demigod that doesn't particularly want to be a demigod. He's the warrior who doesn't want to be a warrior. He's a general who would prefer not to be leading his forces into battle. He effectively is the quiet kid in the classroom that wants to sit there and read books. He's the one who, instead of going, okay, well, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to create this amazing, incredible empire, instead he wants to find out what makes humanity tick, what actually happens in the minds of the people that they are supposed to be building an empire for. Now, he is obviously misguided, but I think that's one of the things I like about him so much, is that he kind of is faced with this weird position of wanting to know more than he is allowed to know. Wanting to believe in something that his father just has declared doesn't exist. He wants to believe that the Emperor is a god, but the Emperor flat out refuses to take the title. And Lorgar's convinced that, well, he must be. He has to be. He's incredibly powerful, he's incredibly old, he's incredibly wise. He is everything that a god is and should be. So why won't he accept it? I think it's easy to misread that as just stubbornness or ignorance, but I don't think it is stubbornness or ignorance. I think it boils down to the way that the Primarchs were made. They each seem to have their own built-in drive, their own built-in agenda. You know, their personalities are very different, and it seems they are designed different. Lorgar is not actually, I don't think, attempting to betray anything. He's not attempting to lie, he's not attempting to con anyone. He is striving above all to be honest. You know, he wants to find out the truth behind the universe, and he does find the truth behind the universe, but it's not a pleasant truth. And even as he finds that truth behind the universe, I don't think outright he would be completely corrupted by it if it weren't for the influence of others. I am of the opinion that the way it's been written, certainly, the implication to me is that Corphaeron and Erebus are the engineers. Lorgar, in his kind of innocence and his willingness to believe, was more easily changed in terms of how he thinks than some others were. But that just makes it more interesting to me. The idea that there are these, not all powerful, but incredibly strong, incredibly smart demigods walking around, who have been made just human enough that they can be influenced by those who are technically their lessers. I mean, it's a really interesting concept, and I think nothing really personifies that more than Lorgar. Lorgar is one of the few who didn't seem to want to be one of the few, and those who were objectively less intelligent, less powerful, less clever, were able to use that to essentially turn him to their way of thinking, which makes for an incredibly interesting character. And that's the thing that I really like. I think out of all the Primarchs, some of them they're all interesting, but I find some themes more interesting than others. And Lorgar's theme, that theme of belief and truth and trying to seek answers to questions that he's been told he shouldn't ask, I just find that a more interesting theme than any of the others. Then of course there is the fact that, you know, Lorgar starts out weak. Objectively, compared to all the other Primarchs, he's weak. He's not as strong, he's not as good in terms of his kind of warrior capabilities. But by the end of it, by embracing all of those things that he has learned, by embracing the answers to the questions that he should never have asked, by following his gut and trying to find out the underlying truth behind the universe he's in, he becomes vastly powerful. I mean, even Magnus is affected by how strong Lorgar's kind of psychic will is, and to begin with, Lorgar didn't even know how to control any of that. You know, before the coming of the Emperor, he was almost destroyed by dreams and visions, and to go from being the weakest to a strong creature that has been made strong through their own seeking of answers, that is, I think, one of the more interesting and engaging themes of all of the Primarchs as a whole. And that's why I think, you know, for me, he is the best Primarch. He has one of the most interesting journeys. He has one of the most interesting kind of starting personalities, and the way that he evolves, even though he's on, I guess, if you're going to take a black and white movie, at the wrong side of the fight, his method of getting there and the way he grows as a character is just what makes him the best for me personally. So that's why I keep saying Lorgar is the best, because for me, in terms of his story, in terms of the adventure that he went on and the growth that he managed, he is. Question is, which Primarch do you think is the best? Which one grabs you the most? Which kind of story of evolution when it comes to these characters? Which one did you find the most interesting and the most engaging? Be really interested to hear which one you go for, because I think it's there's a lot more to Warhammer than just people beating the shit out of each other. Is what it boils down to. And the stories of the Primarchs especially, there is so much more behind them than just godlike warriors. There is so much more to their individual stories of development than just fighting, you know? It's that kind of thing that I find the most interesting. So yeah, let me know in the comments below which your favourite Primarch is and why. And in the meantime, feel free to click videos, Patreon, subscribe, all of that shit. Click it if you like, don't click it if you don't want to. Thank you again, and I will see you for the next one. Toodaloo.